Hey gang, Sally here. Hope you're having an amazing and fascinating day. I know I am. I am getting kind of tired of seeing this view of me sitting on the sofa with my ankle propped up, and I imagine that you probably are as well. On the other hand, if you're seeing this randomly sometime after I'm actually recovered and back on my feet, so to speak, then you probably aren't quite as tired of seeing this view as I am. Anyway, I digress, as I am wont to do. What are we here for today? Well, we're going to talk about a couple of kind of safety related things, and that is how to be able to pin your location on a map and share it with other people using three different apps and a web browser. So we're going to go through how to be able to pin your location on Google Maps, on Apple Maps, on your phone, and how to be able to do it on your computer using the web browser for Google Maps. And I'm going to introduce you to an even better way to do it, which is using the app What3Words. It's the word what, the number three, and the word words. What3Words. But the premise with What3Words is that the entire world has been divided into grids of 10-foot by 10-foot sections. And so you are able to precisely locate yourself within a 10 by 10-foot area, 100 square feet, anywhere in the world. And what's really cool is that 49 of the 50 US states, first responders are using What3Words as a way to be able to locate people. And so your location, for example, might be fidget.composers.lions. I don't know, I'm making it up. Might be a real thing, might not, I don't know. Now I'm gonna have to put it in What3Words and see if I can find that location. And so you can identify it by 3 words, which is easier to say than I'm at latitude 32 degrees, 400 minutes, that's not right, 4 minutes and 43 seconds. And longitude minus 118 degrees, 3 minutes, 32 seconds. Or you can also use decimal points. But it's much more difficult to give a latitude and longitude numerically, especially in an emergency situation when your adrenaline is probably pumping and you're not thinking as clearly as you might otherwise be able to. You can save locations, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to actually show you how to do that on my phone later in the video. But what's important about knowing what your location is? Well, there are a couple of different things. One thing is you might want to share your location with somebody else. Oh, so they can come be with you. Like if you've got friends that are coming to meet you at a camping location, they need to know precisely where you are, especially if you're out in the desert, where it can be very difficult to find yourself. Got a couple of tips and tricks about how to be able to do that using Google Maps and their plus codes. I'm also going to share with you some of the features in Google Maps that you may not have been aware of, different ways to be able to view maps and so forth that you might find useful. The most important reason to really know precisely where you are is to be able to share that in the event of an emergency. So one of the things that I really recommend doing is as soon as you get to a location and you're going to be parked there for the evening, even if it's just one night, especially if you are at all remote from anybody else, pin your location and save it in a way, either in your map or send it, text message it to somebody else or whatever, but save it in a way so that if you need an emergency response from EMS, from police, from fire, whatever, you're going to be able to give them your precise location without fumbling around and trying to drop a pin at that moment. So consider doing that. I think it's a great way to make sure that you know exactly where you are. So I'm jumping back in the middle of this while I'm editing because I realized one of the things that I forgot to say about why it's so important to know your precise location for emergency services is if you are using any kind of Wi-Fi. So let's say you're parked near some place like a Walmart where you happen to be using their Wi-Fi instead of just being on cellular service, or you have your own Wi-Fi that may be tied to your billing address, not your precise location. So anytime you're on Wi-Fi, emergency services is picking up the location of your Wi-Fi signal, which is most likely not going to be your actual location. So for example, I use T-Mobile. My billing address is in Texas. I don't spend that much time in Texas, but that's what emergency services is going to be seeing if I'm calling using Wi-Fi calling. So that's a really good reason why it's important to know what your precise location is so that you can provide that to emergency services. Now, less of an issue, but still an issue if you're not doing Wi-Fi calling, but it's a great habit to get into regardless. And we're also going to talk about location sharing with other people, which I do as well. And we're going to talk about all of that stuff in just a moment. But first, as always, thank you to my channel members. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you taking your time to watch my videos. I've been talking a lot for this year about how one of my goals was to hit 5,000 subscribers this year. Yeah, it would be nice to do that. But what I've realized is that what's much more important is actually getting engagement with the videos. So if you leave a comment, if you give it a thumbs up, if you share it with somebody else that you think might get value out of it, Google sees all of that stuff, YouTube sees all that stuff, and they know that it's getting engagement, and so they share my videos then with more people. With all of that said, let's roll the intro and then get into what we're going to talk about today. Thanks for being here.
Wake up with the sun in our eyes. Sally forth, no need for goodbyes. Journey calls, let's roll the dice. Every mile a new surprise.
This is Apple Maps. So if you're in Apple Maps and you want to drop a pin to be able to share your location with someone else, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing you want to do is zoom in as tight as you can on your actual location, and it'll jump around a little bit, but you'll be fairly close. And then use your thumb or your forefinger and press on whatever your location shows at, and then it'll bring up this little pin icon and send my location. Choose the send button, and depending on, I usually just copy it because I'm never sure if everybody else is going to be able to find it the way that I will. Okay, so I use two different phone numbers, so I'm going to send it to myself by pasting into the field, and it looks like this. And I'm just going to hit send. And now what will happen is, comes into my other phone number, and then it comes in as a link. So you can just click the link, and then you can do walking directions or whatever you need to follow that link. So that's Apple Maps. Now, Google Maps. For Google Maps, I keep the satellite layer active, especially when I'm doing this, because it just makes it so much easier to make sure you're getting really where you want to be. And so same thing, zoom in as close as you can, and then, press on the screen. You get a dropped pin, and you can see that's actually a little bit off from my location, but it's fairly close. And then go ahead and, slide up, and then copy the location. So it says coordinates are copied to the clipboard, and then we're going to go back to messages and paste and send. So with Google Maps, what we get is just the coordinates, okay? And then you have to copy them from your text message and go to Google Maps, where you can go to Apple Maps either way, and then paste in your coordinates and choose search. And from there you can get your directions. So, pretty simple. So, in the interest of being thorough, I'm going to show you how to be able to drop a pin from Google Maps in your browser as well. And so the first thing you want to do is bring up Google Maps and then go over to this little blue location icon. Now you got to have location sharing turned on your computer. And it says my precise location could not be determined. Oh, right, because I'm using a VPN. So I'm going to zoom in. Now what's kind of funny about this is I actually have my location from when I first came to Quartzsite. I have it saved as a map pin location, but this is, the LTVA South Welcome Center. So I'm in LTVA, and I'm not going to, show you my precise location. I could zoom in and do that. And same thing, you can turn layers on here to make it easier to do. And I'm going to show you a couple of things about Google Maps that are actually pretty useful, I think. So we're going to zoom in a little bit, and we're going to say that we are right up near the entrance to La Posa South. There's a vault toilet over here. And we're going to say that we're camped right over here off of this road here in this wash. And all you have to do is mouse click, and then it'll come up and it'll show you your latitude and longitude, and you can right click to copy that. So you can paste it, so you can paste it into a message. And if you click on it, then it shows your precise location. You can scroll down here and you will see this location thing, which is Google's own, I think they call them plus codes. Yeah, so you can copy the plus code. You can learn more about plus codes. If you copy the plus code and you send it to somebody that you know is using Google Maps, then, text it to them. So I've just copied it. And then I'm going to show you over here. We'll just come back in and paste it. So then it says, this is my location, right? So now what you would have to do if you receive this is you'd have to come back over and copy that plus code again, and then go back to Google Maps and then paste it in. So right now it's showing the latitude and longitude. I'm going to paste in their plus code, which is a little bit like What3Words, but it's not universally accepted in the same way. But here's the thing that's kind of cool. If you're giving somebody directions to find your location in a place like the desert where it's difficult to do that, and there are certain turns that they will have to make. So for example, they're going to have to turn off of the main road here. And so I'm going to come zoom into this area, and I'm going to show this location. Same thing, I'm going to click on it here. And now I'm going to get a different plus code, right? So you can copy this plus code and send it to them and say, turn right at this dirt road. And then, cross 2 washes and you'll find my location. Don't bother doing it. You're not going to find my location. It's not where I am. And I'm with a lot of other people anyway, so not a big deal. So that's how you do it online in Google Maps. And this whole plus code thing, same thing, that works on your phone as well. Now, you may be saying to yourself after watching that segment, why wouldn't I just share my directions with somebody? And certainly you can do that. It's pretty easy to do. But it doesn't give you the level of precision that this does. And so if you're coaching somebody on how to be able to find you in a place where it's difficult to find you, then if you say, here's the order in which to enter these codes, they can do it in the precise order and navigate, like for this kind of finding of people, navigating to the spot and then putting in the next code to navigate to the next spot is probably going to help you find your way more easily than somebody trying to give you directions, because Google doesn't think there are any roads out here in the middle of the desert, and technically there are very few roads. So this is a way to be able to do it more precisely than just sharing directions. Okay, speaking of things that you can do in Google Maps, I thought I'd share a few more just in case there's maybe something here you weren't familiar with. Let's talk about layers. As you can see, I've got directions up here. I'm going to show you something else with directions that you may or may not be aware of at this point. So let's start with layers. When you press this little layer icon up here, you'll get this pop-up. And the default map type is, well, the default. That's what you get. And we talked about satellite view, and we've looked at that before. But let's take a look at terrain as well. So when you look at the terrain view and you zoom in, so especially when you're looking for a place to park, for example, and you zoom in on a terrain view, you can see the roadways, but you can also see the landscape. So, do you want to be up against a hill to get blocked by the wind? Or do you want to be under tree cover? Or do you not want either of those things, so that you can make sure that you've got an open view of the sky if you're trying to run Starlink, for example, or if you want not to be near trees because you need a bunch of solar coverage. So any of those things can be really useful. And you can use the terrain view to be able to scroll around the area that you're in and look at that. Now, I'm going to go back to the default view, which is what I use most of the time for driving. But there's some other views that you can use, one of which isn't going to do us a whole lot of good here, but I'm going to show you anyway. So if you choose the transit view, well, there's no transit view available where we are because there's no public transit. But let's add Los Angeles to our route. And now, if we go over here, we're in transit view, so I'm just scrolling in here. So you can see, like, this is the red line that you can see there. You can see all the transit that's available in a particular area. So if you're navigating through a city, that can be, like, super useful. All right, so let's come back over here and look at our map grids again. I use the traffic view very often. You can also use the biking view. And when you use the biking view, that'll show you, and again, it's not going to show you anything here because there aren't any bike lanes here or anything. So let's go back to Los Angeles again, because why not? Actually, let's see what happens when we go to Tehachapi, because I know there's bike lanes there. Route may be affected by a winter storm warning. Yeah, I know that to be true. So I used to live in Tehachapi. Yeah, so when you choose biking, it shows you the dedicated bike lanes. So, you know, like this green right here along South Outer, that's a bike lane. These are bike lanes, so on and so forth. So that's kind of cool, right? I'm going to leave my map alone so I don't have to keep adding in views of other places. And then you can also choose street view. So when you choose street view, see how we got all these blue outlines now? Well, let's zoom in. There's Blythe. Let's come back over here to Quartzsite. So if you use the street view, all of these blue highlights show you where you can use street view to be able to get, you know, a photographic view of whatever your location is. So that's pretty handy. And then there's also air quality, which right now is good. That's what green means. But it can show you all the way up to unhealthy air quality, so that can be really useful when there's a lot of blowing dust coming to an area, for example, and things like that. And then back to our views, we also have available wildfires. And this tells you that there are a couple of planned fires in the area. So that's pretty cool. So we're going to go back to default view and traffic. And that's what I typically run on all the time when I'm navigating, because it'll show me if there are any traffic problems that I might encounter along the way. So let's go ahead and get this out of here. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you that's relatively new, just in case you don't know about it. So we're going to go ahead and start.
Head north on US 95
route.
North.
Now, see this little button here that just popped up that says report? Well, you can report that you've seen a crash or a slowdown, police construction, lane closures, and then you can stalled vehicles and so forth. You can add any of these reports that you see along the way, which can be useful to help out other motorists that might be running into issues while they're driving. Now, this is a pretty new feature in Google Maps. Google owns Waze, W-A-Z-E, Maps now. And this used to be exclusive to Waze because it was all driven by basically consumer input. So people would report police and so forth and stalled vehicles and all that kind of stuff. Well, Google has incorporated that now as well. And as you can see, it's only available if you're in an active navigation phase. Okay, so, and then, you know, they also show you what the temperature is right down here. You can get weather right away. So you can get temperature showing you the air quality coming from weather.com, which can be kind of useful for your exact location. And then, of course, there are some other things that you can do in the settings and so forth, including, and this one's kind of important, guys. I'm going to show you this one too, location sharing. So I'm sharing my location with 4 different people. And one of them, Linda, shares with me. Nobody else does. But what it means is that this is one of the things that I do to stay safe, which is I have 4 people that know what my location is. So if I haven't moved and they don't know that I'm going to be staying someplace for a while, so I normally let my location sharing people know, I'm going to be here for 4 days or a week or 2 weeks or whatever it's going to be. So if they happen to look at the map and I haven't moved, they're not going to be concerned about that. But if I haven't said that, if I'm, typically in travel mode and I haven't moved, then they're going to come back and check on me and try and, call or text to make sure they get a response. And if they don't, then they're going to send emergency services out to my last known location. So as a solo traveler, that's one of the things that I do in order to be able to stay safe. We're going to take a look at what 3 words. Why are we going to do that? Because it's a great way to be able to identify exactly where you are when you want to share your location with someone else. And so right now, this is showing my location, and I'm going to have to blank out over all of this because I don't want you all to know exactly where I am. What I saved here is this one little square. So hopefully you can see all these other little squares. Let's zoom in a little more. So this square is the entrance to the parking lot for the medical center that I had to go to the other day. And using What3Words, it identifies 3 unique words that make up your exact location by latitude and longitude. So in this case, it's denote.composers.laser, and then it also lists the latitude and longitude directly below it. But this is really cool for things like, so that's how to get into the parking lot, right? But let's say I wanted to locate the exact location of the door. Well, I can click over there, right up by the building, and now it's saving.offices.jokes. So that's the entrance that I would need to go in. What's useful about this in terms of things like identifying the entrance to the parking lot is, as it turns out, this location was fairly difficult to get to using conventional navigation because it wanted us to make a U-turn on the main road and then come back around. We ended up going around the block to be able to get back here. But this just makes it easier if you're navigating directly to this position. So speaking of navigate, and I'm in a different square now. So this square is fidget.cool.jungle. But speaking of navigate, if we simply press the navigate button, we can choose to use the What3Words compass. We can use Google Maps or we can use Apple Maps. I'm on an iPhone. I'm going to choose Google Maps. And then it's going to go ahead and route us from the LTVA all the way down to Yuma to the exact location that I identified previously. So we're going to zoom in on that. And then you can see what it looks like in Google Maps that way. So I thought that was really cool. Let's go back to What3Words real quick though, because I want to show you some setup stuff that's pretty important. So go to the menu button up in the top and then go to settings. And you can choose your language, and then you can choose some display settings. I have my latitude and longitude set up to decimal degrees. So you get like 32 point whatever instead of hours, minutes, seconds, because I think it's easier to type those in if you had to type it in. And you can set up your share settings. So I have mine set up to include explainer text, which is I'm sharing a What3Words address to help you find this specific location. Tap to see exactly where it is. And then I have it set up to include a web link, which is the fidget.cool.jungle HTTPS. And I have it to set up the What3Words address, so it includes that as well. I have it including the latitude and longitude in decimal degrees. And let's see what happens if we turn on label, because I haven't looked at that before. So I'm not quite sure what label gets us. I'm going to turn that on, because why not? And then you can also share in a different language if you want to. I only speak English, and pretty much everybody I know speaks English, so that's the language we're using. We've got the photo setup, so you can save an original photo. You can do distance units in kilometers or miles. You can do different map settings. So I have my map set to satellite as the default and Google Maps as the default because those are the two settings that I prefer. You can do whatever you want. I just think it's easier to identify a specific location looking at a satellite photo as compared to looking at the bare map photo, the bare map display. You can do either way though. And then you can have your search settings modified so that you can restrict search results to only show addresses in specific territories. I have it set so that it'll show everything, and then I don't have to change it if I ever go into some other country. I'll be set up and ready to go for that. So those are the settings that you might want to consider. Now, I first heard about this app a number of years back, and the way that it was explained to me was that it was a way to be able to drop a pin that anybody could find. Well, it didn't make good sense to me at the time because anybody can find a pin that you've dropped. But this is actually an easier way to drop a pin for many people. And 49 out of 50 states' emergency response units are using this app because these 3 words, like fidget.cool.jungle, are specific to this exact 10 by 10 foot region. So it's easier to be more precise than it is if what you're doing is specifically dropping a pin. And, oops, we don't need the notifications. So it's more precise that way. It's easier to understand, and it gives people an option of clicking on the link or copying and pasting the latitude and longitude into whatever mapping program they prefer. So that's one way to be able to drop a pin and show you a couple of different things. So I have saved the location of my Yuma Medical Center for the Foot and Ankle Institute for the driveway parking lot. And you can tell that it's saved because it's a little red square right here. So I'm going to click on my red square, and it's going to say save to favorites because I already saved it. And I put a label on that says Yuma Foot and Ankle. You can see that right down at the bottom of the main screen here. But I'm going to save it in a different location. So I'm going to add a new list, and I'm going to make a new list that's just called Yuma Sites. So this may be things that I need to go to in Yuma, not just the doctor. And then I'm going to uncheck Save to Favorites. Now, part of the reason I'm doing this right now is that one of the things that's saved to favorites is my exact location in Quartzsite, and I really don't want to share that with you. So, this is shared. Now, you can go to Saved Locations, and you can choose to see your Yuma sites, or you can choose to see Favorites. I would go to Favorites, and then I could go ahead and select it directly from here. Now, we're down here. I can't drive myself down to the doctor because there isn't really enough room for me to park there. So I want to share this location with the person that's going to take me. So I just click on share and then choose copy. And that will copy it to the clipboard, and then I can just save it, send it in a text message to the friend that's going to take me. But I'm not going to send it to that person. I'll send it to myself again by opening messages and pasting. And this is what I was talking about earlier. So this is the kind of explainer text. I'm sharing a What3Words address to help you find the specific location. Tap to see exactly where it is. Now, it gives you a, I gotta send it first, sorry. It gives you a URL. And so if you choose the URL, it's going to take you to What3Words if you have the app. But if you don't have the app, it'll take you to a browser instead. And then you can navigate from there. But if you don't have the app, you can still just copy the latitude and longitude and paste those into whatever browser you want to. If you have What3Words, now you're here. We've seen the navigate button before, but if you're in What3Words and you want to navigate to that location, then you can choose to do it either via Google Maps or Apple Maps. Now, if you choose the compass from What3Words, this is what you get. So this is useful when you get close to a location if you can't see exactly where it is that you want to be, but it's not going to be really useful for navigating 69 miles. Hope you can start to see the use for this because I think it's a great app to have available.